So I had the pleasure of representing Matt, who was 12 years old when this crash occurred, and 3 years later, 15, when we were able to finish his case. Matt was a front seat passenger in a vehicle being driven by a family friend taking him to school in the morning. And here in Norfolk, as they were traveling down Lafayette, unfortunately, a truck that was a commercial vehicle, construction vehicle, pulled out from a stop sign from their right, crossing their lane of travel, causing a T-bone collision right in the intersection. So it was a nasty crash with terrible property damage. And unfortunately, Matt was the front seat passenger in this vehicle, and certainly would be a terrifying experience for anyone, let alone a 12-year-old on his way to school. Matt was unfortunately significantly injured as a result of this T-bone crash. He was taken to CHKD Hospital here in downtown Norfolk, and he was complaining of some neck pain and some headaches. So the doctors did a cervical MRI, which is a fancy way to view the ligaments and the internal structure of the neck. And after getting back the films and taking a look at the MRI results, the doctor saw that Matt had suffered a tear to one of the ligaments in his neck. And he was immediately fitted with a cervical collar, held stationary in his position, and kept overnight for monitoring at CHKD. The concern with the injury that Matt suffered is that it creates instability in the neck when the tendons are torn or aren't as strong as they normally would be. And those tendons and ligaments are what support the spinal column. So if you have a tear or instability to those ligaments, you're at increased risk of causing a significant injury to your spinal cord, which, as we all know, could result in paralysis or heaven forbid, death. So it immediately became clear that this was a serious situation. Thankfully for Matt, though, his parents kept getting him in to see his doctor as needed. He remained in this neck collar for 3 or 4 months, and the ligament tear healed. And thankfully, when he returned about 4 months after the date of this wreck to his neurosurgeon, the neurosurgeon said, "Great news, we've regained stability in the neck. You can come out of the neck collar, and you are not now in immediate risk." But unfortunately for Matt, the neurosurgeon told him that because he had suffered this injury, he shouldn't play any contact sports moving forward for the rest of his life. Matt had been really involved in basketball growing up in the neighborhood with friends, with his brothers, and he had just begun football the year before. And unfortunately, in a moment, those things were taken from him. The doctor also described to Matt and his parents that he shouldn't be roughhousing with his brothers or neighbors because he's just at an increased risk now for an additional cervical injury or neck injury, which could involve the spinal column. So while Matt's doing well now, he did have a lot taken from him. Thankfully, his injury's healed, but he does have this thought that just kind of lingers over him that, if he's ever in another car accident or suffers a fall or something unforeseen happens, he does have this increased risk of suffering a more significant spinal injury in the future. Matt's case was complicated, and we provided help in a number of ways. And in fact, Matt's case was one of the few cases that we handle and really the few personal injury or auto accident cases that actually have to go all the way to a jury trial. We helped Matt out before a lawsuit was filed, but were unable to get an appropriate settlement offer from the insurance company. We filed a lawsuit on his behalf. We worked that lawsuit up through depositions and the discovery process. We were able to get to the other side to agree to come and do what's called a mediation, where we sit down with a retired judge in hopes that we can come to a settlement agreement. But unfortunately, the mediation was also unsuccessful. We were not able to to persuade the insurance company to make an offer that we felt was adequate in terms of what Matt had gone through. So we were left with our only recourse, and that was to take it to a jury trial. And thankfully, we were able in the summer of 2021 to present Matt's case to 7 citizens in Norfolk who heard the evidence, who heard about Matt's injuries and his damages, and at the end of the day found in favor of Matt and awarded him $250,000, which was something that we were ecstatic about. That was much greater than we had been offered at any point in the case. So we were very pleased with the outcome. Matt was very pleased with the outcome. His parents were very pleased with the outcome. And you know, really, for a worthy client like Matt, who I really related to, there's nothing more rewarding. One of the unique things about Matt's case was that he only incurred about $17,000 in medical bills to treat the conditions and injuries that he suffered. In the grand scheme of things, for the severity of his injury, that's not a whole lot. And a lot of the times, we lawyers expect a jury to return a verdict that has some rational basis or relationship to the amount of medical bills, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the medical bills. What was unique about Matt's case is we were trying to put a value on something that's very abstract and unknown, right? What is a child's freedom to choose their activity worth? What is the ability to participate in football and basketball and not have this hang over your head? What is that worth in a dollar and cent standpoint? So that was without a doubt the most challenging aspect of this case. Finding ways to try to persuade the insurance company to appropriately value that, which we were unable to do given where we wanted the case to resolve. So instead, finding ways to convince a jury that there was real financial value in those things and that Matt should be rewarded for those in their verdict. And frankly, we felt that he was, and we appreciated the hard work that the jury put in coming to their decision and rendering a verdict. So I'm Griff O'Hanlon with Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. Thanks for listening to Matt's story and how we were able to help. And if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call at the office, 333-3333. We have free consultations, and we'd be glad to chat with you. If you have an injury claim or think that you have questions about a family member or someone that you love who's been hurt in an accident. So again, Griff O'Hanlon, thanks for listening.
Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, 333-3333.